to the Grown Up Group. This is a podcast by regular people tackling the world from a Black perspective. Today, I am joined by Jazz, featuring Joe and Anton. And before we delve into today's subject, I would like for Joe to do a quick intro to who he is. And Joe, please.
Thank you. Thank you. Like I said, my name is Joe. I'm a 25-year law enforcement veteran. I started out in my hometown of Newark, and I ended my career at the prosecutor's office in Hudson County, working various units, doing various things over that span of time. And like I said, right now, I'm just enjoying retirement.
Thank you so much for sharing your information and your intro. Amazing. Anton, could you please give us an intro?
Tom Wheeler, school teacher, Newark all my life, and I'm just trying to work my way to retirement so I could be like Joe.
That's
Come
understandable.
join me, man. Come
That's
join me.
understandable. We all yearn for that, don't we? So in today's discussion, we will be actually jumping into police brutality and racial profiling. This is such a strong subject because it affects the Black community in such a strong way. It's really great that we have, a police officer, ex-police officer, retired, as well as an educator here on this segment because we want to delve into the deepness of it. So I want to tell you first what my thoughts are on police brutality. Uncalled for. Uncalled for in every regard. I think every person should be treated like a human being. I think that when we ask for civil rights, this is where it came from. I think back in the 60s and 70s and the 50s, I want to go back to the 50s, where I see, actual, people being hosed down and attacked by dogs. I want to get out of the mindset of that and go into a brighter future for our future generations. But how do we get there? And I think I want to tackle police brutality because it's such an issue that we see in our community. And how do we avoid that? How do we get past that? And then how do we heal from that? In addition to that, I want to talk about the racial profiling that goes on as well based on the color of our skin, our ethnicity. That stuff should be so far gone in society. It should not be the norm, but it still is, especially in certain counties and certain states. We know that there's, certain things that exist that should be well, out of, passage, sent out to passage. But let's go into that a little bit. What do you guys think about police brutality? Let's delve into that first. Antoine, do you mind if I throw this to you? What is your thoughts on police brutality?
I think that what often happens is that we don't focus on the fact that things are marketed to us as communities. And there's been extensive studies. I've even sent to Ty a conversation between Barry Weiss and Aaron Pryor, where he did a study with regards to racial encounters with Black individuals and white individuals and police officers. One of the things that his research found was that it was not nearly as profound as what is marketed to us by the media.
Right. Great point.
And he was so upset that to the point where this is a Harvard guy, the youngest and the first Black tenure. This guy he's just one of the top tier economists in the world, and he said, no, I got to do this again because you got to prove this right. No, you got to prove the mainstream media talking points right.
Right.
Wait, is this a gentleman he was told not to publish that study?
Yes, he was told not to publish it. It ended up,
I remember that.
He ended up having to have police protection for himself and his family, not from white people, from Black people.
Right.
So yeah, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
So my point is that we don't take into account some of the factors because we're often in our community and in all communities, the data points are given to us. We don't go out and research the data for ourselves. And usually data points are given to individual communities, depending on what time of the season it is, to emotionalize, politicize, or bring into an economic perspective some desired result by some oligarch that sits on a hill that is directing policy or both economic and social that keeps us warring with one another when the real issue are the elites. You know, I mean, when you sit and think about it, like how normal is it of understanding for someone to amass hundreds of billions of dollars and people are starving? I mean, like
Yes.
they want to throw us a bone every once in a while and talk about
Mm-hmm.
Mansa Musa. But when he did his pilgrimage and went across North Africa, he left so much gold, he threw the North African economy off for about 10 years.
Yeah.
Mm.
So, you know, like that's what he did with his wealth.
Right. Right.
And then you got to remember, it was inherited from his brother, from like I said earlier, who sent some ships over here. And he came over here. It was like, I'm not
I
coming
ain't
back.
coming back.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
So, you know, I think we're battling a true understanding of what our history is.
Mm.
You know, I think we're battling a true understanding of what society has given us. And then I think we don't understand what we are supposed to do for ourselves.
That's very
Um,
true.
And yeah.
a friend of mine said to me, you know, he said, Anton, you know, do we as black people want more, or do we want more done for us?
Mm.
And I find myself asking that question no matter where I go.
Right.
Right.
You know,
Yep.
you said so
Yep.
much, but you said so much that meant so much. You know, you hear people when they say a bunch of nothing. Every sentence you spoke, it just was truth behind every sentence. You know, I didn't even think from the media standpoint, the things that they like to highlight and put, the target on, their focus is so
Oh yeah.
negative. And, if you go to any other, country, you'd be surprised if you watch their news and see how much positivity comes across their media and news outlets. It's baffling to me why the United States is so focused on only the negative or putting the spotlight on the negativity. People against our race,
Mm-hmm.
immediately it has to be, black versus white issue, good versus evil. Why is that the case? These studies that's performed, that's not brought to light. Why do they want to cover that up? That's great, great information to add to the segment simply because this is the backing
Mm-hmm.
of these conversations. Why does it seem so much broader than what it is? And I think Joe could kind of speak to that because of his history and his, years on the force. He could tell us exactly what he sees. I always want to say behind every story, there's some truth behind it because
Mm-hmm.
there's criminals in the justice system. There's criminals, in the actual jail systems. There's criminals everywhere you go.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
you said in office, I was like politicians
Absolutely.
all day long, but they're not behind bars. Even in the pharma, they're not behind bars. They're pushing drugs every day, but they're not behind bars. Is a big difference. They like
Right.
to put that spotlight on the statistics of how many black men are in jail and how much police enforcement is racial profiling or doing the police brutality, but they don't say what led to it or if that person was guilty or in at
Mm-hmm.
fault.
Mm-hmm.
And if they are at fault, then what is it? Yeah. So definitely,
Well,
please give
see,
us some more
media is
information.
marketing, and yeah, media is marketing, and that's the main thing we need to understand. Think about it. Like you said, you look at the news over in the UK, over in Asia, you have news that's geared towards informing the people. Whereas, look at what we have over here. We got Fox News, we got CNN, we got
Uh-huh.
MSNBC, and everybody has a different narrative.
Yes.
So they want to market to their base
Mm,
and not market to your base, but give you the
Right.
information they want you to have, not the information that's actually out there.
right.
Right.
Like case in point, when I got over to the prosecutor's office in 2005, and I left North PD because of there were too many factors there that hindered me from advancing and doing what I needed to do, doing what I
Mm.
wanted to do.
Mm,
You know what I mean? I don't like politics. I wasn't anybody's nephew or son.
mm,
I wasn't related to this councilman. I wasn't a friend of that department director. I was just a kid who came on and
mm,
had to work.
mm,
And I got tired of this narrative. Whereas when I came out the academy and I bust my butt for 5 years on the streets, and that gold badge was there, the way I saw it, it shouldn't be a decision between me, who actually worked. I got the scars, I got the stab wounds, I got all of that, versus a kid who sat pretty for 5 years because his uncle owns a business downtown North. There shouldn't be a decision as to who gets it.
Right.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's what prompted me to say, you know what? I need to go a different direction. I need to go someplace else where I could still serve my community with this badge, but the right way.
Right.
So, and when I got to Hudson County, I got to the prosecutor's office. The first thing I saw when I got there was that there were so many programs geared towards going into the community. Like, you know, everybody heard of National Night Out, the big night when police departments come out with all of their vans and their toys and their things. It's great, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But we were doing things like, you know, coffee with a cop and you know, all of these things where we went into the different communities. And Hudson County, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but the racial and ethnic dynamic is vast. I mean, you have Black, you got Hispanic, you have Middle Eastern, you have Asian. You think of the community, it's in Hudson County.
Right.
And what impressed me most was that between the prosecutor's office and the sheriff's office, they wanted to get to know and serve all of these people. In which I thought was, I'm like, wow, I have never seen anything like that.
Yeah.
So it was great. But what got me was that we would do all of these things and have all of these community programs. Then I would rush home and watch the news or go to NJ.com and pick up, and you wouldn't see anything that we were doing.
Right. So that positivity out immediately erased. So
Right.
where's that to show the community? Because that was my thing, right? You said Hudson County, but when you live in Essex County and they put on the media constantly of the killings, the burglaries, the home invasions, all the negative things that's like you on RLS, on all the media outlets, and you know, and Newark, number one, you know, worst city to live in, you know, type of, you know, stigma that
Oh
they're
yeah,
giving us, you know.
absolutely.
And you go out there and you do all this positive work. How do you bring that back and be like, okay, now we need to put a spotlight to this? What how do you try to, I want to say, broadcast that? How do you broadcast that? How do you let the society or your community know that there's out there that's better for them if as being hidden so much?
Yeah. And see, and the shame of that is that, you know, again, when I got there, it was in the infancy of social media, so to speak.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it was one of those things where it was like, okay, we were out there for 8 hours yesterday, playing with kids, giving out balloons, talking to people, and nobody is telling anybody about it. But an hour after we got done, I don't know, a cop arrested a kid and it was caught on his body cam. That's all over the news stuff.
Right.
You know what I mean? You saw that everywhere. NBC, ABC, Fox. You know, you saw that little 3-minute altercation all over the place.
Right.
But the positive that we did within the community was just missing. It was gone.
Yeah.
So now the next day, after we did all of this positive stuff in the community, we go out there the next day now to do our jobs. No one is looking at us as those cops that came in there interacting with the community. They're looking at us as that one bad cop who did that one thing the night before.
Yeah.
And that's where the narrative gets skewed. And that's where we end up constantly going out there as the enemy. I'll be the first one to say, I honestly believe, call it naive, honestly believe there are more good cops than bad.
Oh, absolutely.
But the problem is you don't see the good.
Right.
Well, that's
You know?
because the same media that praises you demonizes you.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
it's getting
Yeah. Think about it. Every time you scroll through your social media, you see a thing where, whoa, this cop is out there in full uniform playing basketball with a group of kids. Why do I got to see this on Instagram? How come I didn't see this on the news last night?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
You know?
It's very true.
But again, when that cop the very next day goes on the job, he has to go into the projects or whatever. Those kids aren't going to look at him as a cop who wants to play ball and chill. They're going to look at him as that other cop who beat the crap out of some kid the other day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what skews the narrative.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what and don't get me wrong, a bad cop is a bad cop.
Right.
You do something wrong, pay. I'll be the first to say it. But we shouldn't all be demonized by the actions of one, you know.
I agree. I agree with that statement.
Mhm.
I actually had someone tell me before, there's no such thing as a good cop. And I was like, are you out of your mind? I have family members that are
Right.
cops. I have, loved ones
Yeah.
that I know for years, meaning friends, like, that I've known for years
Mhm.
that are cops. Like, there's no way that you can tell me that they look at, every white man that they see they come across like, oh, I'm gonna get him locked up because I know my black brothers are out here suffering. No, it's not as malicious as that.
Yeah.
What's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. And when you're in the wrong, you don't want nobody to tell you you're in the wrong. That's you being stubborn and that's you not wanting to abide by the law. That's a difference. You get dealt with in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
But
Right.
you can't look at it and say all cops are bad because I had this one experience. It's like, okay, that was your experience, but that's not
Right.
everybody that's out there on a force. And I think a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people, black people especially, will be like, okay, being an officer, a friends of a brother, of an officer, that's taboo to them because they're like, oh man, my brother's an officer. Like, I gotta watch this. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like, there's some
Yeah. Yeah.
negativity. There's a
Yeah.
negative stigma over that, and it shouldn't be. I'm pretty sure your missus or your miss or your friends or your family have once said that
Oh,
in the past, like, oh yeah, I told him he was a cop. You should have saw their whole expression change because they're like, oh, he
yeah.
one of those. Like, that that
Yo,
that is sad. That's really sad because I think without police officers, the world would be, chaotic. It would just be like mayhem. So
absolutely.
it's like you can't
Absolutely.
have the best of both worlds, but want the best of both worlds. It's like, your contradiction of it is just crazy to me, but that's what the reality of it is. Um,
I
Yeah,
just
what are
Lynn,
want
how
to
your
many
say
thoughts on
one
people looked at
thing.
you sideways when you said you were going to Seagirt, Lynn? When you were like,
Hey
"Yeah, I'm going to
man,
Seagirt," how many of your boys looked at you
it was
like,
different.
for real?
It was funny because half the
Right.
hood was happy, and then half the hood was inside. The other half was
Right.
inside.
Yep, yep.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah.
like and then what I wanted to say real quick was, you know, how much of that is about what we talked about earlier, Joe, about the marketing.
Oh,
It
Hmm.
like we're not division sells, chaos sells.
Oh,
There's order in
oh,
chaos. Like
absolutely.
you know, um, it's a weird dynamic, and
Hmm.
what happens is I think that we don't have a true understanding, even though how this society's country started out, constitution, laws,
mhm,
we don't understand that when you dig deeper into what was stated in these documents,
Hmm.
now is the time to make them applicable to all.
yeah.
Right.
You
Right.
understand what I'm
Right.
saying?
Hmm.
So I just wonder, where do we go from here? Um
Yep.
we hear these buzzwords, and that's what they are. They're buzzwords.
Buzzword. Exactly.
They're buzzwords,
Yes.
they're media sound bites.
Yeah.
Um
Just to, to,
and they
to
drive our
rile people up. Yeah.
the gaslighting.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
mean, like I'm gonna ask you this question. Every time you look on the news, you see a poll. Anybody call you?
You know, in an
Absolutely
election
not.
year,
Hold
you
up.
hear that every
Can I
week.
tell you
Yeah.
1 in 4 out of every Americans? Well, it's 4 Americans right here on this podcast that have
Right.
not been
Nope,
contacted
nobody
by
called
any
me.
poll.
Right.
In the past 15 years, we have not been
No.
contacted by any poll.
No.
So what I'm saying and what I'm submitting to you all is that we have to understand that there's a bigger thing at play. There's a
Mhm.
bigger thing at play than our emotional and our post-traumatic experiences. And all of that, no matter how bad it is for us, it factors into somebody's bottom line.
Mm.
It doesn't matter if you're white, doesn't matter if you're black, Asian, Latino, or whatever. If you ain't down with this global to leader strategy about
Hmm.
destabilizing the world and making
Mm-hmm.
it about this one understanding and this one frame of thought and this group think, this global group think, then you're in for a sad awakening.
It's true.
Right.
Down to social credit scores, what do they call it? Universal basic income. Like, I mean, think about that. Do you really think somebody's gonna give you something for nothing? They don't want to give us reparations.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
And we
I talk about that all the
we
time.
earned that.
Yep. We did earn it
So,
right off
like,
our
what do you
ancestors'
think
sweat,
comes with
blood,
that?
and tears. Absolutely.
Yeah, so You know, like I talked to all my friends, everybody buying electric cars. I said, you won't be able to drive at the stop of a button. I said, do you understand when they digitize this world and our economy, if they don't want you to shop outside of a 25-mile radius of your home, you
You
won't be
won't
able
be
to.
able
You
to.
won't be able to.
Right.
Nope.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm like, do you understand that with COVID, this was the greatest understanding of censorship in the history
Yeah.
of this world
Absolutely.
since
Yes.
modern media? What
Mm.
they
Yep.
did, and then got with social media companies and said, yo, well, if we don't do this, we gonna enact this law and enact that law and force them to do what they wanted them to do.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
Yep.
so and then I hate saying this, but sometimes we get a little stupid, right? Because you get somebody like Nancy Pelosi, is in Congress, been in there for 10 years. The
Yep.
largest salary she ever made was recently in the modern era of 180 something thousand, probably, right?
Yep.
But she worth 300 million,
Yeah.
and
How is
Math
most of
that?
her
ain't
stock
mathing.
tips are
Yeah, the
come.
math ain't mathing on
Yeah,
that.
Right.
and most of her stock tips come from committees or things that she's either affiliated with by proxy from somebody through a caucus member or herself sits on. Like, come on, like, and the biggest problem is we're not waking up.
Yeah.
We're not
Right.
understanding what needs to be done.
Right.
And then we get into this divisiveness of this social construct called race because there are no genetic markers that separates us from white people or Asian people or whatever. We're all
Yeah.
human beings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
And when you
know,
look at the basic construct of race, think about it. People say, all right, well, what is your race? Are you black? Are you white? Are you Jew? Wait, hold on. Jewish? That's a religion.
Jewish, is that
Yeah.
a race?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
what are you talking about? You know what I mean? So the construct in and of itself is senseless. And like you
I
said,
mean, like,
So
everybody falls into it.
I
yeah,
wanted to go
because
deeper into that. I wanted to say, when you look at the Irish, you look at the first settler Irish, you look at an Irishman, you could see it. I don't know if you guys know, but most Irish people have freckles. Where does freckles come from? Hello,
Exactly.
hello.
But
So
don't tell
it's
them
so
that, though.
crazy. If you
Don't
look at
tell
the
them that.
first ancestor,
Mm-mm.
he darker than me. So it's like, he had blue eyes and dark, they said dark olive skin, but it was black. It was a black olive
Yeah.
skin. Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So, whenever
man, half
someone
these cats
questions,
throughout history was blurple.
hello,
They was
Oh
really
Right.
my
black.
Right.
goodness.
and I said, and then somebody was telling me about somebody, Puerto Rican. I'm not, black. I'm Puerto Rican. And I said, if you
No. No.
look at your ancestry, you blacker than I am. It is the craziest
Mm-hmm.
part.
Let me tell
If
you.
your knowledge, if you don't have knowledge yourself, then you could go ahead and fool yourself and make a statement like that. But I know better.
All you
You
want.
just gotta go look up your
All
No.
you
No.
history,
No.
want.
So,
how
so I
deep you
asked
want to
them.
go into your history.
I'm going to cut you off. I asked them, especially Dominican. I said, so then what are you?
Yeah,
I know black. I know black. I said, so tell me what you are. Please
yeah,
tell me what you are. I'm going to hurt your feelings every
Mm-hmm.
time you say something crazy. Like,
Why you
Yeah.
melanated?
yeah. Why
right,
you
make
dark?
it
Yeah,
make
why
sense,
you dark
sir or
skinned? Why
ma'am.
you got a shade of light?
Like
Why you was
I had to tell
darker
my
than
daughter,
me?
right? Right, right, right. And I tell my daughter about the Cohesion people of Africa. They're
Mm-hmm.
slanted eyes, or whatever you want. Slanted. I said, where do you think they come from? Oh, they Asian. I said, no, 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 no. They're black. I said, where do you think the Asian get their eyes from? And I showed her.
Exactly.
I saw because she has
Oh,
eyes
historic.
something like that. And I said, that's not because nobody in our family being Asian. That has nothing to do with that, baby. They because we can make anything. Anytime we make
Mm-hmm.
any race of people. And she was
Mhm.
so blown
Sure.
away when I showed her that. She was just like, Mommy, what?
Look at
I
it
said, yeah,
this way.
that, huh?
Look at it this way. Real quick, look
Mm-hmm.
at it this way. If creation was what everybody says creation is at that time, that means that everything was in its most purest and radiant form. The sun, the moon, the stars.
Mm-hmm.
There was no
Mm-hmm.
toxicant, there was no pollutions, there was no whatever, right?
Mhm.
Um, who could deal with the penetration of the sun's rays more than somebody who had to have the chemical understanding
Yes.
of what was already in the universe?
Yep.
And
Right.
we all know that that's melanated
Absolutely.
people, right? What they
Yes.
call melanated people. I
Absolutely.
mean, we always get these words and people define these words or whatever. But
Mhm.
people, human beings,
Yeah.
of the forefront of creation. We need to start calling it for what it is. Because what happens is once we get into these different constructs, it loses its validity.
Okay.
Mhm.
We forget, we want to start talking about specific kind as opposed to humankind.
Right.
And we got to get
Mhm.
out of that,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, ain't nothing but one of us is just a shade of a shade of a shade of a shade of a
Yep.
shade of a shade of a shade of a shade,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very true.
based off
So,
of whatever reality, genetical concept or speculation you have. There's no difference for us. If you put somebody Asian, white, black, African, Guam, Fiji, Hawaii, whatever
Mhm.
you put them in a firing squad and start releasing rounds, what's gonna happen to all the men?
Everybody going.
No
Nothing
matter
but
what
red
color they
going to come out.
That's right.
Mhm.
So at the end of the day, once we start really understanding that our common bond and the common color that we have to deal with is the darkness of green because of the oppressor.
mhm,
Because capitalism is cool. It ain't the best,
it
but
ain't.
it's better
Right.
than some of that other stuff.
Yeah.
And but what we have to remember is capitalism absent love and compassion is greed.
Yeah.
Yes.
It
Mhm.
is it is
Mhm.
just another form of socialism or communism.
Right.
So, we have to um educate ourselves to that understanding. Two, become more civically involved. Three, take heed to some of the things that they say about some of the markets and development and emerging markets that exist. If you have $1 here, 500 here, 1,000 there, if you can, invest it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
When you're planning for your retirement, you have a 403B or 401k or whatever it is, or a mutual fund or a money market. Make sure some of that is diversified. I don't care if it's $15 a month. Because at the
Mhm.
end of the day, what we're gonna have to understand, and even Joe, I'm willing to bet what he loves more than anything in retirement is his economic independence.
Oh, I mean,
Yes.
yeah, 100.
And his
Absolutely.
economic independence and with his expertise and what he's learned over the years, he can always go get something else, consulting wise or part-time, or I would love to see him
Yeah.
become a teacher, or a college professor.
You're
Yeah.
To share his experience and go forward. So, ladies, what I always say is this. We can shame the devil and call him a liar, or he already knows what he is. We can start holding ourselves accountable and hold the mirror
Mhm.
up to our own community and start doing what we need to do and recognizing the shaitan, the devil's force in our community, and start expiating him out.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
all I have to
I
offer.
agree. I
Yeah.
I don't
agree.
have anything else
So,
to say this evening. That's what I have to
okay.
offer.
So I do want to delve into a little bit more of the topic of police brutality and racial profiling because I'm going to play devil's advocate because you did say, like as if it's something that happens, but you say that is not just specific to, the minority, right? The minority race or the poor, economy, right? Is that not true? So I'll play devil's advocate and say, then why does it happen in most inner cities? Why does it happen in the worst scenarios in the cities where you don't see, the poverty level is very low and that you see the majority of the neighborhood is black and that there's always a type of, a lie told in order for them to be attacked or to be under attack. So I'm going to play devil's advocate in that regard and ask Joe, what is his thoughts on that? Because we spoke about racial, we talked about police brutality, but we really didn't delve into like why racial profiling is such a big hot topic. And I think that's what I'm trying to get to. I know we said, equality, and I know we talked about, there's, just we're all one race, just of different shades, which is understandable, but it does exist. So it's not like so far of a narrative to come up here and talk about police brutality and racial profiling because it still happens in our inner city and more importantly to our youth. How do we change that? And what social justice do we put in place so that we can see that there is a change in cause and effect and that it isn't all this negativity in the media? I know I said a lot. There was a lot of questions to delve into, but my first one I do want to delve into is if that doesn't exist, why does it happen in inner cities? Why do you see it so prevalent in inner cities where this takes place? The police brutality as well as racial profiling.
Well, I'll tell you this. First, the police brutality, all right, you see that in the inner cities. Because I'm going to separate police brutality and racial profiling. I'm going to start with police
Yep,
brutality.
please.
The reason why we see it so much in the inner city, and the key phrase is that why we see it is because, again, it fits a narrative. Now, I was born and raised in Newark, right?
Yep.
Okay, if you look around, we all from up top.
Yep.
You look around Newark, what surrounds us? Irvington, inner city. East Orange, inner city, right?
Yep.
But then you start going outward. What do you see? You see West Orange, you see Short Hills, you see South Orange, you see Millburn. So we have this extreme dynamic that goes from city impoverished to like what multi-million-dollar homes.
Yeah.
So there is no median
contrast. Yeah.
Right. Think about it. You go up West North, what borders you? South Orange. Okay. You go to North North, what borders you? Bloomfield, Montclair. Right?
Yeah.
So you don't have a median. Now, I'm in the southern part of the state right now. So what we have down here is you have, you know, a nice little suburban area. But then when you go across the tracks, you have these trailer parks, you have these broken down farmlands, and you have these places where the people that exist in them, they're not us. They're not Black. So you go from these suburban areas with the mix. I got, you got Black, you got white, you got Asian, you got a group of people where I live. But you go on the other side of the tracks that border us, and you got like these trailer parks that are mostly Caucasian, some Hispanic, or whatever. Yes. Now, I know cops that work in those areas down in here. And every time I talk to them, hey, how was work? Oh man, I was up in, and I don't know if you guys ever heard of the term pineys.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Pine Barrens is this large forest area that runs from central to South Jersey. And within those areas, you have like the trailer parks, and you have like hillbilly homes, as they call them, whatever the case. So I'll talk to cops, and they're like, oh man, please, I was in the Pine Barrens the other day and I got into a scuffle with this guy, or, we got into a fight with that guy. And if you were to see that same dynamic in Newark or East Orange, if you were to see it, it would be like, oh wow, look at these cops beating on this Black dude. And it'd be all over the news. It is just as prevalent in those areas.
They don't show it.
The dynamic is it's the white cop going through it with a white person.
Right.
Hispanic cop going through it with a white person. So you won't see it, but it is prevalent and it does happen. But again, it goes back to the marketing.
Right.
It goes back to what they want you to see. So yeah, there is some credence to say what Anton was saying is like, yeah, it happens in the white communities as well, but we don't see it because it fits the narrative. Now when it comes to racial profiling, that's another thing. We don't see as much of that in the inner city as you do. Because again, think about it. If you live in Newark, and let's say you work at Livingston Mall, you work at Short Hills Mall.
Right.
You hit South Orange Avenue, you can drive up South Orange Avenue, you can pass 100 cops. You won't have a problem.
Right.
But the second you cross Dover Street and get past Seton Hall, sometimes you get lit up.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay? Because again, that right there is about them not wanting us in their communities or having an issue with us for whatever reason. And again, it's not all cops. It's not all cops.
Right.
But it's also about culture too. It's also about culture too, right?
Yes.
Because we racially profile in the hood back in the day when you saw a white person come into a Black community, he was buying drugs, right? We ain't know what he was really there for. He was coming to get, he was looking for prostitutes to come to buy drugs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Listen,
so at the end of the day, what I'm saying is what we all fall victim to in our perspective realities is prejudice.
Right.
And what happens is, depending on how, like what Joe was just saying, how whatever narrative is fed to you, you understand what I'm saying? To create your reality by the powers that be. Because right now, don't no cop Don't know judge, don't know mayor, don't nobody control the images that's on TV except the
No,
people that do.
Yeah. Yeah.
the
And
Rupert
I'm
Murdochs
willing to
of the
bet.
world.
I'm willing to bet, and I'll leave you with this. I'm willing to bet if you did, because I'll say this to you and I'll submit this to you. Everybody interview every police officer in every police department in this country? No.
Yeah.
You get a small sample of what they believe is well enough to create some type of dynamic to say that this represents enough of America.
Yeah.
Just think, Aaron Pryor, who I just mentioned earlier, he went back and did his study again. It took another year
Yeah.
and got threatened because the data was still the same.
Right.
In white communities, white cops kill white people.
Mm-hmm.
And in black communities, black cops kill black people. White cops harass white people. White crime is amongst white people. Black crime is among black people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we calculated crime and the things, and based on what they do, we always want to talk about the gun violence in Chicago, but we don't want to talk about the rape and pedophilia and the incest and the other things that go on in other communities.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
They turn a blind eye to
Absolutely.
that.
We
They
don't,
turn a blind eye to
they
that.
turn so and that's because in this new culture, because remember I said it's about the culture,
Right.
they're trying to normalize certain things.
Mhm.
So,
Which is
at
weird.
the end of the day, which is weird.
Which is
And at the end of the day, people, the onus is on us, and that's why I appreciate your question. But at the end of the day, we owe ourselves and we owe our ancestors an apology.
okay.
We can
Yeah.
because we can always get into this dynamic where we're gonna argue about, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The perspective, male and the female perspective. But every community does that. And what happened was we got involved in another community's dispute between themselves during the feminist movement. That had nothing to do with us.
Right. Absolutely. Nothing to do with us at all.
It had nothing to do with us.
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with us.
Right.
And we jumped right into it. And we're the victims of it. Because what happened? Their husbands went back in their home.
Yeah.
Their
Absolutely.
families stayed together.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I was couldn't, because you wanted government assistance, you had to be messed up in a broken home.
Absolutely. And that
I
man
go
can't
back to
stay
the
there
movie.
with you.
Well, I go back to the movie with Diane Cow and James Earl Jones, Claudine.
Claudine, I love that
swear to God,
movie.
Hide the
just
damn
jumped
brushes.
out.
Yes.
I love that movie.
ironing
Every
board,
time they
the
talk of it, I
lines.
think of that movie.
You understand what I'm saying? Like, that's
Yep.
what they did. And a
I'm
man who
toasted.
wanted to take care of a family and build a family, you understand what I'm saying? What
Mhm.
happened? He was on the back of a garbage truck, right?
Yep.
So, hey, listen, even when we talk about the images that are put out there, and I love Charles S. Dutton, but he was rock, and he was a garbage man in Baltimore, right?
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
He had to talk through that lens. The
Yeah.
images that we see on TV, and listen, I love a good ghetto show every once in a while.
Right.
don't.
But
Right.
all we
I don't.
see is dope fiends, dope dealers,
That's why.
mothers pushing
Yep.
their sons
You
to
know
be
what?
dope dealers.
I'm gonna cut you off, right? You know what I just found out? I don't know if it's exactly the same subject. I found out that Tubi, who owned Tubi, but now you know that Tubi has all them ghetto, all the hood movies on here, all the shooting, all the drug, all the stripping,
Is
all the
it Fox?
prostitution. I was blown away.
It's
That
Fox,
said so much. Yes.
You
Fox
didn't know
News.
that?
Why would that blow you away
I
when
just
they did?
found
Why
out
would
the
that
other
blow?
day. Like, what?
Why would that blow
Wait
you
a
away when they did Empire?
Yeah.
Why would that blow you away?
Yep. Yep.
Fox
It was
Think
owns
about it.
Tubi.
It was like, oh, I love Tubi. I love a good horror movie because we can relate, blah blah blah. And it's like, look who's behind it. I'm
Yeah.
good over
Look
here.
how
So
look how
when you
Tubi
I'm
blew
good
up
over here.
so fast.
yes.
I was
I
like,
was
I'm
about to
done.
say
It
that.
blew up.
But do you know why? Because there's a stigmatism. It's so they're ignorant. They're gonna watch this ignorant mess that's on the TV.
Yes.
And I don't watch a lot of it because I figure it's like, it's like the Good Times theme playing over and over in my head.
Right,
If I
right, right,
watched
right.
it one time, I don't need to have it regurgitated to me in all these different characters and different shades
It's
of people.
terrible, man. I
It's
was
just
like,
though.
it's
It
Good
goes
I
back
love
to the
that.
black
It's
exploitation
Because
Good
movies
I'm
of the
good
Times.
at
70s.
pulling that.
Who produced them? Who
I bet,
produced
yo, Lenny was in
Coffee
that's
love
the
with
thing
Brown
some of
and
too.
them
all
I was
those
like,
movies
well, who
movies?
alone,
produced this
boy.
stuff?
They're just no lie. And that's
I'm
why
like,
I
who
think of
All
all
those
produced
of
that?
them.
black exploitation movies back in the 70s.
Yes,
Wasn't us.
absolutely. Yeah, wasn't us.
Wasn't us.
It
When I
just
said I
came
was
back.
mad,
Even Sweetback's Badass Run, which was written and directed by Melvin Van Peebles, he didn't have the capital to put it forward to get
Yep.
them. He had to
Somebody
go
Right.
to
financially backed him. Absolutely.
Right.
go to the
Absolutely.
same
Right.
gentleman that did Shaft and
Right,
Superfly and all of those
right.
guys.
A white man.
Yes.
It
Yep.
was a Jewish
Exactly.
studio.
A
Yep.
Jewish, exactly.
A Jewish studio. And getting back to the police brutality thing, what I would like for us to do, and if no one takes anything from me, from my participation in this cast, and I thank you so much for inviting me. And it's been wonderful to talk with you all. Is this quantify your own experiences, not somebody else's. I'm not telling you not to help people who have been taken advantage of,
Right.
or who are being misjudged, or are being persecuted unnecessarily. I'm not telling you that. But I'll ask you just this one question. Since we so tough, gangs, everybody, BLM, Antifa, whatever,
Yeah.
why ain't nobody push Derek Chauvin
Oh.
off George Floyd?
I was gonna
Why
go
wasn't
into
the
that
first
next.
thing that
Social
happened?
justice was my next bullet point. Social
Why
justice was my next bullet point.
wasn't there a Nikita Koloff Russian sickle clothesline, or Steve Austin Stone Cold stunt done on Derek Chauvin? Why was he allowed? You understand what I'm saying? So before we start criticizing the system, we need to check our gumption.
Check
We'll
ourselves.
have gumption to shoot each other.
Mhm.
We'll have
See, that's the thing too. That's
We'll
the
have
thing too.
gumption.
I said we're so tough with each other, but why is Zimmerman still walking this earth? Why ain't
So-
handle him? But you handle old boy on the block though. Like, come on,
When we
let's
saw
let's
him
not.
doing
For
blatant
me,
wrong.
right?
And even
For
go to
me,
Tyree Nichols.
Tyree Nichols. There you
Memphis.
go. There you go. So like, it's not even about stoking violence. It is about saying, like some other communities say, never again, or enough is enough. Now it bothers me because you got other
Right.
communities that say never again, but 15 to 30 million Africans in the Belgian Congo was killed alone. Let's not talk about those that came through the North, the Atlantic slave trade and the Triangle trade, the few millionaire. Let's not talk about the times, historical times that we could even calculate through history, where genocide was just created because another empire wanted to rise.
Right. Yes.
We
Of course.
talk about Dresden and World War II and Churchill, but we forget that the potato famine and on the Irish, and how he depleted the food from Indians in India, what that did to them, and how many millions of them died.
Yeah.
We forget that there's a reason why they said the sun never set on the British Empire. We forget that, we're expected to watch coronations or jubilees where they parade around in London with jewels on their head that were taken from people that they colonized and treated their people crazy.
But you know what?
I respect Elon
But
Musk.
Anton,
Not
Anton,
one
I
crown
do
jewel
want
is
to,
native to England.
Anton, I want to touch on that, because you know what's missing in this, right? You know what's missing in this? You speaking a lot of knowledge, and it's because you go and you delve into that. You go research and you read, and I can tell you're a well-read brother. But that's missing in our school systems. So that's what's a miss. When you hear about all of these traumas with the police and all this stuff, our people was very, very few, far in between, that know our history and our ancestors and that knowledge. So when you tell that and you kick the knowledge, I'm telling you, like when I post this, I know there's so many people that's gonna be like, what is that? They're gonna go grab their phones and they're gonna Google it, because
That's
Yeah,
they
the
don't
that's a
problem.
good thing. Yeah.
they don't
But
know that.
And
Malcolm
that's what
said,
you
you
want.
don't let your
That's what's needed.
enemy educate your kids.
Right.
That's the problem.
But
The
but
school
we're in a
system
school
has become
system
too much,
that
not
we
Todd, but the school
100%.
system has become too much. We become the uncle, the caregiver, the drunk uncle
That,
at the
that's kind of,
cookout,
yeah, I get
the
it.
aunt that take the food from the cookout. We become the therapist. We become everything. We can't just teach reading, writing, and arithmetic because people
That's
not handling what they
1000%
need to
true.
handle at home.
That's
You understand what
1000%
I'm saying?
true.
So what I've learned in these past 16 going on 17 years is that, our community has given up a lot and expected a lot to be done for us. And the reason why we do that is because of a grievance. But let me say this to you. You can have a grievance and you can go to the lengths you need to go to get that grievance addressed, but you still have to produce and manifest that which is necessary to sustain yourself, your family, and your community. So you can't wait for a blank check. It ain't coming. until you truly fight for it. And the way you do that is taking control of your apparatuses. It's just like I tell people all the time, and this gets back into policing, because now what do? In our communities, they use our police to create cop cities and things of that nature, but we don't master our political equity. We give 95% of our vote to a particular group who counts on that and factors that in, not having to do anything for us.
Right.
Yep.
Well,
They
they
don't
lie.
have to do
They lie
anything
and say
to
they're
us.
going to do stuff for us, and they don't.
No, then they get upset when you say, well, you know what? I ain't like the hotel you took me to last election, so I'm going with this cat because the hotel got a buffet that I could get up and eat at 6 screw me and screw me over and treat me like and bring all the Democrats from all states, from all representations, and to see me. You know what? Before you trade me off as this political trollop, I'm gonna go over here because at least they got a better buffet.
Yep.
So like we got to get out of that. We have to get out of that thinking. Schools are there to do what schools do. Let me explain something to you. And I'm sorry, I got to let you ladies and gentlemen go. But I want to say this to you. And this is what I wanted to say because the topic was police brutality.
Yeah.
There's been no greater brutal force on Black people than Black people for the past 250 years.
Yep.
There's been no greater brutal force on us than us over the past 250 years. And no, I am not. Please don't. You one of them right wing. No, shut up. Shut up. You say that about me, you ain't thinking. You dumb as the statement you're making.
Yeah.
What I'm saying to you is think about who we were. Even through Jim Crow, even through Reconstruction, when they created the Ku Klux Klan as the first white union to protect them because they didn't have the skills because of slavery, because we did all the work and we had all the trades. And after a war, there are government contracts that have to be given to rebuild the country.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my
so they got us locked into sharecropping and hoe slopping because that's where you get pimps and johns from.
Yeah,
that's where you get Mr. John from.
Yeah.
So when we sitting around and talking about these things and we talk about police brutality, well, you know what? The only reason why police are able to brutalize us is because we ain't policing ourselves.
Oh, I was going to talk about self-policing in our community.
If we were policing ourselves, click, clack, like the deacons of defense in the Southwest, like deacons of defense, click, clack. I think you need to turn your squad car around, officer, and go the other way. We good on these parts. You understand what I'm saying? So what I'm saying, when we have to get better at really realizing what our conditions is. I'm sorry, what our conditions are. And you know what that is? We think somebody owe us something.
Yeah.
And they may do. But it ain't coming right now. We ain't put together enough to fight for it. We ain't show enough self-sustainability. We still talking about day schools and day system. And we show them that we put Black people ahead of it and it still ain't working for us. So what we talking about?
Nope.
Well, we've got black police directors, Black police commissioners, Black prosecutors, Black attorney generals. And what you talking about? And the law still ain't.
You know what we don't have? Let me interject and say, you know what we don't have? We don't have the financial institution to get that. We don't have the financial backing to get that.
Stop. Black
we
people
don't have a lot of the resources that other people have.
People
we have to go to other people to get those
$1.7 trillion in this country a year.
But we have to go
got
to other
more.
people. We spend more, but we don't actually have the financial resources to go get it.
We got the financial resources. We don't know how to work together.
But
it's
we put it
that's
true.
That is
part
true. That is true.
We don't know how to work together.
That's very true.
Do you understand? Wait. Because now y'all done got me. Now I'm
That's good.
Do you understand that there are Black billionaires and multimillionaires in this country that don't want to be Google?
Yeah.
They don't go to Martha's Vineyard.
Absolutely. Yeah.
They stay away from this situation that we call Black America.
Yeah.
They make money on the stock market.
Yep.
Mhm.
They have
That's it.
plantation in the States.
Yep.
They
Mhm.
have money that circulates amongst these elites. We sitting around here, we talking about we want equity and all this stuff. Well, stop using your phone, because some little kid in Africa died to get some cobalt or lithium to help make it.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
true.
And then you got to look at we
Listen,
as a community. What are we spending our money on?
what are we spending our money
About
on? Jordans. Your kid can't do
That
multiplication. You ask a
Yeah.
kid, what's 232 times 12?
He doesn't even know how to begin to
But
solve
you
the
ask him
problem.
how many points Steph Curry scored last night. 33. Did you see
oh
what
my
he
God,
did?
yeah.
Such,
Yeah.
such.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
It's,
You know you know who your favorite basketball player is, but don't know who your kid principal is.
Yep.
mhm.
That a lot.
You
Yeah.
done made it to the bar
That a
free
lot.
before 11, but ain't make it to back to school night or report card night.
I promise you.
True.
And
get
you talking
wings.
about, and we gonna talk about police brutality? Well, we ain't teaching them in the homes how to deal with police.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It ain't the system's job
There
to
you
teach
go.
you how to deal with the system. What are you,
There you go.
stupid?
There
But
you go.
you
Right
know,
there.
you say that, but it's again, I go back. You made a lot of statements about how our upbringing was and how we are. And you're like I say again, a lot of people do not know. And you can't teach on to until you're knowledgeable within yourself. Like a lot
I
of people
bet
do
you
not
everybody
know
know
that.
when P Valley coming back on next season.
Oh
I
Lord.
bet you
I don't.
everybody know when Power Book 2 coming
I
on and
don't,
when
because I
it's
don't
the
watch those
everybody
shows. I
ain't
don't,
no
because I
home.
don't watch
Oh, we
none of
talking
Yeah.
it.
about a majority. Because this one of
Okay.
them polls, right? That they don't
Right?
call the four of us.
Right,
But I
right.
bet you in the
Mhm.
poll, if you did a start, I bet you they know when Power Book Part 1 and Part 2 coming on. I bet
Yeah.
you
Mhm.
everybody know that Ghost. I bet you everybody know that Omari Hardrick said he wanted to come back. But if they ain't give me this and they ain't give me that, I bet
Some
you
people
everybody
know
seen that
that.
video. But
Right.
They
ain't
know
nobody
that.
watch Khan
You know
Academy to
another one
teach their
too?
kids
That
how to
going
multiply.
that on Zeus Network, whatever, all them girls in there fighting and all that stuff. All
Yeah,
them black
come
girls
on.
fighting each other.
But that's
on.
marketed. That's another marketing strategy for negativity
I
and to
can't
pump
deal with
And
it.
that's
the
exactly what it is.
agenda of what we are as a people. So yeah, I don't buy
That's
into none of
exactly
that
what it is.
Just
garbage.
think
It's
about this,
something
right?
else to distract us from what we could really
Yeah.
be finding out and knowing
This is what I
Absolutely.
tell
and learning.
people, and this is with respect to Joe, and please forgive me for having to cut out, but I got
No.
some work I got to get done, or
No
I'm gonna be in
problem.
trouble
No
tomorrow at
problem.
school.
No, don't do that.
Joe, you know why I got a problem with black people when they say they have a problem with police?
Mm.
They don't respect Bass Reeves. Assalamu alaikum. Everybody take it.
Good night.
Everybody, good night.
Yes.
Sums
Good
it up
night.
right there.
Nevertheless,
All right.
if you understood Bass Reeves' story and what this man went through after, the only other U.S. law enforcement officer that was as great as him, but he was more of a dignitary, was Frederick Douglass, because Frederick Douglass was
Oh
a
my
U.S. law
gosh.
enforcement.
Absolutely.
People don't know that.
Yes, that's what I was going to
Bass
say. That's why I
Reeves,
said, I'm like, a lot of people do not know what you're speaking. You're going to
Don't
be speaking
know.
so much foreign language when they push play on this because they're going to be like, what is that? What is mass musa? What is it?
A
They don't
whole
It's a
know.
good
TV
thing.
A
It's
lot
a
show,
of
good
people, and I'm
thing. It's a
telling you,
good
you're
thing.
right. They
a
know
whole TV show
tyranny.
and movie
They know all this
franchise
stuff,
is
but they
based
don't
on
know
Bass
the
Reeves'
knowledge you're
life.
kicking.
but Ty, Jazz, Joe just said it. A whole TV show and documentary series and movie series. Paramount got one on. I get pissed about it, but I still love him. He a black man. But they got a
Yeah.
British black man playing Bass
Playing
Reeves.
Bass Reeves. The
David
Lone Ranger
Oyelowo.
was based on Bass Reeves.
Yeah,
For
yeah.
real. They did a bunch of documentaries, the Discovery Channel,
Yep.
A&E, everybody.
But they not
So
watching
what I'm
it. They
saying
watching
In the
Tubi.
50s.
Well, it's
Yeah.
just like when people say, well, I don't stand for the Pledge of Allegiance or whatever. I'm like, listen, let me explain something to you. Now, I got my issues with this country, but my grandfather was a staff sergeant in the United States military. I was too fat at the time to go into the Navy when I wanted to go. There are a bunch of black men and black women. They just tell you about the white nurses that was on the front line in World War II.
Yeah.
They only tell you about the white nurses that was on the front line during the Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
They only tell you about the white. They don't talk. They don't talk to you about why a Buffalo Soldier was called the Buffalo Soldier.
Yeah.
My grandfather has his patch to this day. I have his patch.
They don't talk to you about, the Seminole Wars and how most of the people in Florida that were considered Seminoles were black warriors who fought for their land and then were used by the Spaniards. They were used by the Spaniards to protect Spain's land, because Florida was owned by Spain, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe correct
Yeah.
me if I'm wrong now.
Absolutely right.
So, and most people, then when they wanted to escape, they came to Florida because they heard it was some free place down there that they can go and do what they need to do.
Mm-hmm.
So they had a projection and a perspective of this country. And for me to deny it all, you know, it's a little hypocritical.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? And then,
Mhm.
you know, like I said earlier, when we talk about they came before Columbus or before the Mayflower, when we talk about the indigenous presence here, well, it wasn't no indigenous presence without us. It wasn't. And we have to get into understanding that all of these things that challenge our community, whether it's police brutality, poor education, poor economics, is because we as a community have lost our intuitiveness and have got out of sync with the universe.
Right.
It's just that simple.
Yes, I agree.
Think about this
Absolutely.
in the world we live in. You want to talk about police brutality? Hold up. Forget police brutality. How brutal is the system that doesn't hold people accountable who brutalize people in the name of law enforcement?
Yep. Mm.
You know what's
Forget-
funny? I'm gonna touch on that. Yeah, it's that the funny thing about police brutality, well, for lack of a better word, is that in the academy, you know, you're trained, you're told, you don't do this to people, you don't do that. You don't abuse, you don't do this. But I'm gonna take it back. Back in the mid 90s when I first got on the job, if you were a gay man, don't even bother to try and get on the job. And if you did, you keep it to yourself. You
Right.
lie and you said you had a girlfriend. You look at every woman, you whistle at it. You just better make, because if someone found out that you were gay, you were stigmatized, you were hated from the top down.
Mm.
It got to the point where I know guys who just said, I can't stay here, I can't do this, I quit.
Oh, wow.
I don't agree with that philosophy. Live and love as you choose.
Right.
But my point is,
Right.
police brutality will not change or it will not begin to diminish until you put that same energy to despising a police officer who does that. Other police officers have to make these police officers that do that have to make them feel ashamed, demonized, and stigmatized. The same way you made black officers feel back in the beginning of the century, the same way you made gay officers feel middle of the century until present day. Right. If you can put that much energy into hating people being who they are, put that same energy into cops who are taking the badge and tarnishing it. Until you do that,
Joe,
it won't change.
Joe, hey Joe, listen, I'm gonna say this, and man, thank you for saying what you just said.
Yeah.
And the reason why I'm glad you said what you just said is because if that's the culture inside the departments, what the hell they think about us? Black, white, Asian, green, brown, purple, yellow. They will do it inside to themselves.
Absolutely.
For some warped social construct of solidarity, unity, brotherhood, and all this other stuff.
And this is ours.
And this is ours.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
Then I'm gonna flip it a little bit, and I want the audience to research on their own and think about what I mean.
They're gonna be researching a lot.
We talk about
Right,
this
it's a good
country,
thing.
right, heading towards another civil war.
Mm-hmm.
And Joe, I'm going to speak to you a little bit only because I'm going to go back to what was done with Trump, George Floyd, going forward, pandemic, blah, 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 right?
Right.
We saw the heavy-handedness of the elite. We didn't see the heavy-handedness of the country because the heavy-handedness of the country would have been the will of the people. What we saw happen these past 4 years was the will of the elite. And what I guess what I want to submit to you is that if we don't look deeper beyond that, we have a very serious problem. I want to say, and I'm going to say that the militarization of police departments, the involuntary commitments of people through what is it called? Consent, informed consent,
Informed consent, yeah.
informed consent, fear mongering, hate mongering. If you traveled around this country and talk to people, at the very least, even if you talk to a white supremacist or a black nationalist or whatever, they have three things in common: faith, family, and freedom. Now, they might be looked at under umbrellas, but what happens is when you go into these spaces or they come into yours and y'all start talking, they do what the elite do that want to make money. They set their differences aside and say we get ready to imperialize or colonize these people because it's worth this.
Money,
It's worth a commitment to the betterment of our way of life. So what I'm submitting to people is that we just need to do a little bit more understanding, personal engagement, and always remember, and let me say this, as an educator, but as a human being, a system isn't supposed to do what you're supposed to do.
Right.
A system isn't supposed to take care of your child the way you're supposed to. Not a welfare system, not a healthcare system, not an education system, not a military system, not a Federal Reserve system. No system serves anyone but the person who created it. And with that, I say I love you. Thank you for allowing me to join you this evening. And please invite me back.
I will, definitely. That's our educator right there, Anton. It was a pleasure to have you, brother. It really was. I'm really grateful to have joined us. Okay. You said a lot, Joe. I really commend you because I feel like you were going to be the person in the hot seat today because you are, the police officer, retired. And I was like, he's going to take the brunt of this, and I apologize because,
No.
Yeah, because I was like, it's going to be a little heavy and thick. But I love the way that Leonard basically, I call him Leonard. I always call him Leonard. I don't call him Anton.
I know him as.
Yeah, I know him as Leonard. So I'm like, I love the way that Leonard took the subject and was like, it's more heavier than just, racial profiling and police brutality. It goes beyond that.
It is.
And I love even how you circle back to the gay rights in a part of the police department, because I know that was heavily frowned upon in the 70s. I have a uncle that was gay and actual police officer. So, we always used to call him Aunt Ben behind his back. But we knew Uncle Ben definitely had, a relationship with a man. And because he was in law enforcement, it was very hush. It was not even a joke. You couldn't even joke in that manner.
Yeah, no, you couldn't.
It was so taboo. Like, for him, he would tell us, he's like, I don't eat lunch with these people. I go to my, by myself. And I think he was in the force for maybe about 10 years before he bowed out and walked away. So I really even appreciate that. Like, your statement, I was like, oh, I remember that. So, even in your childhood, you hear these little stories that were like, what happened? And that's, that was one of them that touched, that was really personal to me. But I really, I commend you for being a part of this, podcast and the segment on, police brutality and racial profiling, because, I think a lot of people look at it with such a negativity, and I understand it because you said it yourself. Also Anton said it. It's the negativity that is shown to us on a regular basis from, the media. As well as social media, because social media as well. I'm just hoping that more social justice within our own community, in addition to, teaching our kids better in knowledge and laws and rules, and tell them what the regulations are, what they can't, the boundaries they can't cross, especially when it comes to their personal space and all of that stuff. I think they need to learn that. I never forget, I told my son, I've been teaching my son since he was very young because he was the black man in America.
Yeah,
but one thing I did, I felt my black daughters and regurgitating and making sure they knew the same information as their brother. I always thought that my son would have more of the target on his back or perceive the threat, with his 6'4" frame. I always thought that he would be perceived more of the threat than the girls. And I always think that black women, even though we may be posed as a threat, we're not as immediately based on appearance. Just maybe on our actions once we are confronted. that we're then a
Mm-hmm.
threat. So it's a little bit different, but the same knowledge I gave my son, I should have, told my daughters that.
A lot, like when they were talking,
Anton.
Anton and Jill were talking, I was so intrigued because I love to hear a black man, intelligent black man talk. So I
Yeah,
let them
yeah.
talk. I didn't even have too much of an opinion because it was like they know, they're into it, and I always told myself it was two things I wanted to be, and well, one thing I wanted to be at one time, and the two things I said I could never be was a cop and a teacher. Never.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to be a cop in high school. I mean, they had this long form they came in, this like application show how you I guess apply or start out, and they had the little dummy gun, shows how heavy it was, things like that. And I got into it, and it was like I could never be a cop. Never.
Yeah.
Because first of all, it's a conflict of interest. I could never be a cop within my own, I can't say community, I want to say, because I know so many people who are into a certain lifestyle, including certain family members. But it get
That's
right.
rough.
Right. And it's like I can't do it because it's too hard. Then in my family, my grandfather, he was special police, my brother, he's special police, my cousin detective, my other cousin, he's a cop. So it's in my family, like it's in my family. I always it's just like it's almost like it's in my blood to almost be that. But I can't, me personally, as far as like profiling, I think a lot of stuff they said to serve and protect, but serve and protect who? When we're being brutalized by cops. And it's not all cops. It's just the bad seeds, the bad apples or whatever. And it's like a lot of stuff comes from fear. We're scared. And then when you corner somebody or when you make somebody scared, eventually you're gonna have to either fight or flight response.
Yeah.
So a lot of stuff comes from fear. A lot of stuff comes from fear, anger. Like when we see a cop, immediately we go right into defense mode. Right to defense mode. And I know I'm the same way. When we driving, I'm like, I'm even to the point where my paperwork in my car is straight, but I get a fear when I see a cop behind me. Because I don't know if this cop is gonna pull me over. I don't know if this cop is gonna pull me over and accuse me of something. Now I have an autistic son. Now most my son is in the car. He can't talk. This cop decides he wants to, do something crazy or something wild. My son is not gonna respond well. My kids are in the car, they're not gonna respond well. So it's a fear thing. I'm afraid, like, damn, I'm a 40-plus-year-old woman, and I'm afraid of what a cop may do to me, whether black or white.
Yeah.
So a lot of that like I said, it's a lot of that stuff is fear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even where I live at, where I live at right now, it's if a cop pulls in here right now, immediately after coming to their house, they're yelling. I watched an actual, I think a fire happened over here and the cops pulled up and the fire department pulled up, and you should have seen these people throwing water bottles at them and garbage. I was so angry. I said I was angry.
Wow.
And the boy got the camera in the cop face. Like, what you gonna do? What you gonna do? Cursing them out. I said there could never be a time in my life that I could be a cop because I would have came out of character so quick. But I couldn't. I just can't.
Yeah.
They get such a bad rap. I said when your friend gets shot, who you calling first?
Yep.
The
That's
cops.
the hardest part.
The cops, like, make it make sense that, like, so it's like a lot of things come out of fear and anger. It's fear and anger for me. It's like, and you can't be a black cop. Lord knows you can't be a black cop.
Yeah.
No.
Because it's like, bro, like you like bro, like you a cop.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I was saying
sold
about
out.
stigmatism earlier.
You sold
You
out.
fell out. Like you're like
You're not even black. You're just blue now.
Right.
That's
And
all
my
to
brother,
say.
even my brother, he was telling me about the experience he had. And he's special. He works in the supermarket. He works in the bars. He's on the street. He could be in complexes and things. He said he felt so bad for locking somebody up. One guy, he said he locked up. He didn't lock him up. He had to lock him up because he was outside using the bathroom. He ignored it. But his white partner saw it. He was like, he hopped on it. He was like, bro, we're not going to do that to him. Once they saw he was outside peeing and they ran his record. He like, bro, I gotta lock you up. I don't want to do this. He said, but my partner or my superior, like, you gotta go to jail. You have a warrant for something that's. So it was like he said he felt so bad, like it was something so small, and I got taken to jail for it. So being a cop or a black cop, it's terrible. I couldn't do it.
Yeah,
it's rough, especially when you're put. First, when I came out the academy, the one thing, because I grew up in the West Ward. And, when you come out in North, at least back then, you really didn't have a say as to where you went. You just went where they sent you and where the need was.
Right.
So my biggest thing was, I'm like, don't send me to the West. Don't send me to the West. And they sent me to North. And I was like, okay, thank God. North Newark, I didn't. Well, I had family over there because that's where my mother grew up. But
Right.
that's not where I grew up. So I didn't have friends or whatever running around. So when I got there, I was like, okay, at least I can do my job. And I know every time I turn around, I'm not going to run into somebody I went to high school with.
Right,
Right.
right.
Fast forward 4 years later, I got thrown in narcotics. And where did they put me at? In the West Ward. And I remember my
Mm.
first night working, I chased the kid up the stairs and I tackled him right off of 16th Avenue across from West Side Park. Chased him up the stairs and I tackled him. A gun fell out of his pants and I turned him over and he went to reach for his waist. So I put my forearm down on him and I looked him right in his eye. It was a dude I graduated from high school with.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
And we both just
You
stopped
know,
and looked at each other. And I thank God my partner was right behind me and just took over and did what he had to do, like whatever.
Right.
But I was just like, bro, this is just my first night, and I'm running into not somebody who just sat across from me, somebody I knew from elementary school that we went all the way up through and graduated high school together.
right.
I've known this kid for at that point 20, almost 20 years.
Wow.
So yeah, it's hard. It is hard because either you run into people you know, even the people you don't know, they like you from around here, and this is what you do. I mean,
Right.
you got to kind of like
Right.
justify your existence.
Yeah.
And
It's
I'm like,
crazy.
I'm sorry you don't think so, but police are here. And my thing was always, well, you know what? And the reason why I started doing it was because I'm like, well, you know what? If it's got to be somebody in my community enforcing law, why not me? Somebody that cares about it,
Thank
you
you.
know?
Yeah.
That's
And that
my
was my
thing. I want to
whole
help.
thing. Yeah, I'm like, I'm not here to put my foot in nobody's neck. I'm here because if it's not me that grew up here and cares, it'll be somebody that didn't grow up here and don't give a
Just
damn
don't give a
about
shit.
you.
Right,
Right.
right.
Which one do
Exactly.
you want?
Exactly.
Right. But you know,
And I
that's
would
the
ask
unique thing
people,
about
yeah,
your job. That's the one thing that's really unique about your job is that there's no other industry where you have to pick and choose. Do you want to actually, be friend or foe? Because you that's a choice that you have to make. There's no other career choice you have where you're like,
no,
okay, I'm going to be forced with this dilemma that I might stumble across or might happen. I've never been, in
right,
my job, I work in construction. I've never been in a construction site and was like, oh, I hope I don't run into one of my, coworkers, like, or somebody I grew up with. Like,
Right.
no other profession would you think, okay, this is going to look bad for me, or this is going to be a bad situation if they know that I'm this type of person, as a career. I
yeah,
picked this type of career. That's crazy. Yeah, that's got
yeah.
to be
And
hard. That's got to be really
and
hard.
it please, I've come across, and again, I've had relatives who were strung out. I have relatives who was out there selling. I have relatives who did time in prison. So it was hard for me to be in certain places at 1, 2 in the morning, and I see like an uncle or an aunt walking past me. They so high they don't even realize it's me. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Right.
And I'm like,
Oh, that's
Jesus
tough.
Christ. Or I get a call. I'm working, and I get a call. Yo, Joe, can you respond over to Orange Street over by Backs of Terrors? I gotta ask you something. And I get there, and I see one of my cousins hemmed up against the wall, and I'm like, yeah, yo,
Right.
Joe, he said he your cousin, and I'm just sitting there like,
Oh.
Bro.
you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like,
Yeah, yeah.
and
Excuse me.
and that was like that was the crux of my whole 10 years in North. And I tell you, I was so relieved. Don't get me wrong, I loved my time with North PD. I learned so much. I met some great people, and I got to really do things in my community that I enjoy doing.
Yeah.
But kind of getting out of there and going up to Hudson County, it was that was part of the relief for me.
Yeah.
Right. If I said relief.
Knowing,
I
yeah, I'm like,
Relief.
thank God, because I don't have any family up there, so I'm not going to be running into people that I grew
Right.
up with and things like that. But yeah, that's a hard dynamic. But it's when you're going to do it, you kind of sign up for it, hoping you
right.
never have to deal with it. But you do,
Yeah.
But you
Oh,
do.
that's got to be
Yeah.
hard. Well, I thank you. I'm very thankful for you joining our segment just as much as I was very thankful for, Anton joining us. I know he had to go. I
Yeah.
just want to say thank you guys for watching. This is the Grown Up Group again. Please like, share, subscribe. Let everybody know we're talking about real subjects and topics that are faced with our Black community. We hope that you enjoyed them, and hopefully we'll see you guys on the next segment. Bye.
All right.
Peace.
Peace.
Bye.